Hello and welcome to the Education on Fire podcast. The place where we share creative and inspiring learning in our schools. Season 2, Episode 15. Hello and welcome back to the Education on Fire podcast with me, Mark Taylor. Today, this is part 3 of our Apps for Good focus, and today's podcast is going to be split into a couple of sections. First of all, I'm going to be speaking to Chris Aitken, who's a teacher from a high school in Scotland, talking about his experience from a teacher's point of view of Apps for Good and how it's impacted on his school and his students. And then I'm going to take you back a little bit to the launch episodes, because I'm also going to be speaking to the fellows of the Apps for Good organisation, and they're going to give a little bit of insight and their experience of what it's like to be involved beyond having had their apps made, and they've continued to be part of the Apps for Good. It's described as a friendship, really, and how the organisation's really supported them into their sort of later learning and then towards the start of their careers. So that's going to come in the second part of the show. But first of all, this is Chris talking about his experience as a teacher. Hi, Chris.
Hello, how are you doing?
Great. Could you just give us a little bit of background about your school and how you use Apps for Good? And we're really keen, having spoken to Heather, just to sort of hear a little bit about how it works practically within your school, and also how it works in other schools, especially on that sort of the early part of sort of age 10 and that sort of end of primary level.
Yeah. So I'm Chris Aitken, computer and science teacher at Wick High School in Caithness, at the very far north of Scotland. We've been using Apps for Good as a course for 5 years now. We took Apps for Good in during a time of significant curriculum change in Scotland with the introduction of the Curriculum for Excellence. The emphasis for the Curriculum for Excellence was to provide a broad set of learning experiences for students and give them opportunity to have cross-curricular work and give the teachers the flexibility to teach what they want and how they want to teach it. It gives them that flexibility and freedom. So it came at just the right time for us. I think we were one of the first schools in Scotland to take on the course. We run this course with 14 to 15-year-olds in our third year curriculum. That's the third year is the last stage of the broad general education before they move on to senior phase, which is where they do certificate courses. The course we run in curriculum time over the course of a year is team-based, where students come up with a problem within their sphere of interest, and then they design a solution for that problem. The course isn't really teacher-led to an extent, and some teachers find that quite a kind of strange concept. I personally like to give the students freedom to reach a depth of their learning as they feel comfortable with, whether it's just designing mock-ups on wireframes on paper, using Balsamiq Online, all the way through to developing fillable and working prototypes in Thunkable and Atom Inventor. So students work in the teams throughout the year, and at the end of the year they submit to the national competition. And if they get through that, then they go to London to take part in the national finals. And if they win the national finals, they get their app made professionally. And the students work together with the development agency to bring their ideas to life and get them to a point where they can be downloaded on the App Store or the Google Play Store.
What I really love about it is the fact that it really comes from them coming up with an idea which is important to them. Like you say, it's often sort of social led, isn't it? Or just a way of trying to fix a problem which they come across or that they feel would actually help the world. And I think that's a really good starting point. It's not about learning how to build an app. It's about learning what's important within your life, and finding a way to find a solution with it actually in this sort of technical sphere.
Yeah, I mean, and that's one of the main drivers for the course, is that the students are working on something that they're passionate about. This year we've got a group of Highland dancers who are making an app to encourage young dancers to practice more. In previous years we have had a group of farmers who made an app called Cattle Manager, and they wanted to make an app to remove the paperwork from farming. And they went and won the national competition. And really the driver is their passion. And the teachers are there to kind of guide them along the way and point them towards resources, materials, and help them to generate that ideas and refine those ideas to a point where it can be producing a viable working app.
And I guess the most important thing to get across to our teachers, especially those in primary schools, because the actual apps for good can start from age 10, so we are talking about primary as well, is the fact you don't need that sort of computing background necessary to take this project on, because not only is it child-led and it's about developing ideas, you also do get support from external people from Apps for Good as well, don't you?
Yeah, the course can be taught at a depth that you're comfortable with. It's whether you're designing your app screens on paper, online, it's entirely up to you. But teachers in primary shouldn't be put off by the fact that it's not their area of expertise. They're not keen on IT. Really, they're just there to support the students and kind of make sure that they're producing ideas that are viable and that will work. There's a lot of resources available on the Apps for Good website, but the key part of the course is that teachers can bring in experts from industry through requests in Apps for Good, and these experts can visit schools remote, via Skype, or they can come in to actually visit schools personally and give that expert advice or areas that the teacher is really not comfortable with, whether it's business planning, the marketing, or app design. We have all these areas of expertise that can be drawn from and kind of help allay any fears for primary teachers that this course wouldn't be for them.
And this particular issue's come up a few times in some of my recent podcasts, is the fact that the fear factor that often kicks in for teachers when it's not their specialist field is kind of, oh no, I'm not quite sure how to go it. But the important thing is that all the resources and all the support is there through the organisation, and also I really like the fact that when teachers feel out of their comfort zone, I think it makes a great way for them to identify with their students, because often they're feeling exactly the same. They're learning new things and they're out of their comfort zone quite a lot in their learning, and so I think to have that sort of shared learning experience, I think, can be a real positive attribute.
Absolutely, and it shows the pupils that teachers are learners as well, and they can draw on each other's experience. And if there's something that a teacher is not too sure about IT wise or technology wise, then I'm sure the kids can kind of fill in the blanks. But it really is about that shift in mindset for teachers to think they're no longer there to deliver the course. They're there to help them along the way, and just make sure that they're staying on the right track.
Brilliant. Well, thanks very much for that. And I guess that the best way of them really checking it out is to go to the Apps for Good website, and all the links are on the show notes at educationonfire.com, and from there they can see examples of the support they can get, and also there's all sorts of ways of just finding out about previous projects and how the whole thing works, and as you said, going from your initial ideas and how it works in your school all the way through to getting through to the London finals and actually seeing apps which have actually been developed and are actually now on the App Store.
Yeah, and teachers really, they shouldn't be too focused on making the final, because obviously it's getting harder and harder as more and more schools take part, and the app market becomes more and more full of ideas. They can be encouraged to do local heats. They can do their own school Dragon's Den, take in people from the local area who may set up an event, and they can pitch their ideas to local experts. Really, it's all about the whole process and the learning process for students. Regardless of whether they make the final or not, by the end of the year, they're going to produce something that they're proud of, something that they're proud to take home and show their parents. And really, that what they get from doing the course much outweighs the few finalists that actually win the final competition. And the opportunities that can come from doing Apps for Good is just unbelievable. Making that connection between school and industry is something that certainly in Scotland we think is very, very important with our Developing the Young Workforce scheme. And I do think that industry connection is the kind of secret sauce of Apps for Good. It just brings things to life and makes things kind of move away from the educational bubble, the bubble in school where they just do things in school and it's done. Students are really seeing that connection with what's happening in the real world.
Yeah, and exactly what the bigger community out there, both in terms of workforce and the support that you can have, and just bringing it all together. And I think that link is absolutely key. I think anything which starts to separate out the fact I go to school and then I do something else, and actually no, you're just living your life, and this is a way of finding support, finding resources, finding organisations that you can feel like you can work with, and I think that organic nature of learning is absolutely key to a really bright future for everybody that's currently in school and beyond, for that matter. So, Chris, thanks very much for chatting to us. That's given me a real good insight into exactly what Apps for Good looks like and feels like from a teacher point of view, and that was exactly what we were after today. So I appreciate your time and wish you well and your students in their projects that they're doing this year.
No problem. Keep an eye out for some really exciting stuff happening in our school with Apps for Good. Hopefully we'll see some winners again this year. It'd be lovely.
Fabulous. Many thanks.
Cheers now.
So I hope you get an idea of how the Apps for Good project works for your school. You know, all the resources are online. You have all the support you need from mentors, being able to be accessed through Skype or coming into your school, and you can take it in any way that you want, really. The foundation is there for you to engage the children in an idea, in something they'd like to solve or something they'd like to make part of their SAP. And then it's about the way you just develop it all the way through, and the skills that they get through their team building, through working together in their specific specialism really, and I think that's such a really crucial factor in what makes this project such a great success. And I think, as you heard in the previous episode, you know, the excitement and the enjoyment that the children have got from being part of the project just comes through in their voices, and it's great to behold. So now we're going to listen to some fellows, and fellows are basically people that have been involved in any way, really, through the Apps for Good project, who then take on this extra responsibility of being involved in the Apps for Good. They do some speaking and some volunteer work through the organisation, but they also get the opportunity, as you'll hear from their interview, to go and speak to industry people, to learn new skills and develop them, which really helps to support them both in their sort of academic learning and into the start of their careers. So here are some of the fellows that I met at the Apps launch, talking about their experiences and what it's gained from them. So I'd like to thank everyone who's been involved in this week's project at Apps for Good. I've really enjoyed the whole thing and visiting them and speaking to everybody. And yes, please go to appsforgood.org. And check out all their resources. Here are the fellows.
My name is Habiba and I'm an Apps for Good fellow. This is my second year at the Apps for Good app launch, and I really enjoy being a part of the fellowship, and I think it's an amazing opportunity. I get so much out of it, so many opportunities to speak, to network with people, and to build my confidence. And as well as being a part of the program to begin with, I learn a lot of transferable skills, but now I get a glimpse into kind of employment by going to doing like really interesting work experience placements, and just everything I get out of it is really valuable.
And so how did you become a fellow? Is it because you've been involved in creating an app already in a previous year and then you get the option?
To become a fellow, all you have to have done is completed the Apps for Good course. So even if your app didn't win its category or didn't win the public vote, you can still become a fellow. It's all about networking and creating more opportunities, as well as filling up your CV.
Absolutely.
Which is obviously very beneficial.
Absolutely. So Alex, so tell me, what was your app and what was your first introduction to Apps for Good then?
Well, I was part of I'm OK, which is a 4-girl team which won in 2014. And so Apps for Good was a compulsory course for us in Year 9, so we'd do a bit every week, and it went on for a year throughout that whole curriculum. And so we all formed app teams, sort of formed randomly, and we all worked together to create our apps, and then we submitted them, and then the best ones were picked for the final, and we were very lucky to be picked for the final, and I think Katie and I are very grateful for it. And so we went to the final, we pitched at the Barbican in front of a panel of dragons, and we were very lucky to win our category, and this resulted in our app being made. And it was a very smooth experience. it wasn't very stop-starty, and we had all the help we needed from industry professionals and experts.
It really does sound, from everyone that I've spoken to so far tonight, that support network that you have, and you say the experts and the professionals, as well as the people in your schools and the staff, it all works incredibly well. And you can tell by everyone's just so excited about how it all is, that actually it's such an inspiring thing. I mean, that's one of the reasons I started the podcast, was that kind of, no one wants to be at school just waiting for home time. They want to be thinking, I can do something, and how do I go about doing it? And it's these sorts of opportunities which make you feel like that. Is that right?
Precisely. I think the amount of opportunities all of us fellows have got from it is incredible. A lot of us have gone on to win more awards. I think our app was nominated for a BBC Teen Hero Award in the category of Digital Hero. So we've had the experience of the BBC meeting the Radio 1 presenters, and Apps for Good's really pushed us through that. And the experience doesn't end at the launch. We're now working to push our app onto the iOS store and for Apple, because we're only on Android at the moment, so trying to maximise our downloads.
Okay, brilliant. So the one thing I've realised is my season 2 is all about computing and tech. And the one thing you think is, everyone thinks, right, I'm doing a computing and tech season, we must be talking about coding, and it must be all about Java, and it all must be about Python or something like that. And the thing that I've realised is that that's just not the case, because tech is about literally us using tech and understanding how it is. It's not necessarily about being sat in a room, just the person doing the coding. And I think that's been a real eye-opener for me, but also for lots of the people that I've been part of interviewing.
No, I completely agree. I think that's what's so great about Apps for Good, and what I don't think is pushed enough is the fact that it's not just about learning to code, but it's also about creating these business skills, which is so important in the future, and learning all about how the development of the app, so you've got to think about the user experience. We had to work with developers to create the design of the app, but also it's so important to pitch it, and also to speak to people, and also get the funding for it. And it's so much more than just sitting there and typing away, and you've got to really make sure that you've got so many different skills, which Apps for Good definitely builds.
And how many were in your team for the app when you won your award? How many of you were part of that team?
So there were 4 of us in our team, and we kind of got put together, and we had different roles. And so mine was definitely the coding side. It was something I found was amazing. But before Apps for Good, I'd never actually realised that was something that I could do. And when I realised about coding, I would go home and I would code in my spare time, which is absolutely brilliant. There was another girl who, she was in charge of the content, and so she was really knowledgeable about our app, and so she was able to kind of design it all. And then Alex was definitely into the business, the public speaking, and she and Josie worked together. Josie was more the design of the app, how it looked, the fonts. So definitely it's also teaches us about teamwork, definitely, because if you need all these different people, you need to build on each other's strengths to create this app.
And I think that's the thing that's really important to get across, is the fact that you're all part of a tech team because you're building an app. But within that, you've all got your specific roles, which come from what you're interested in and how it is that you want to produce what it is that you're doing. And that's what people don't necessarily understand. I've built an iOS app, and I don't code at all, but I have someone who does the coding, and I've got someone who does all the artwork. I was much more project managing, much more sort of understanding how it all goes together and following the whole thing through. And you think, actually, how can you have a tech company but not code? Because I don't need to. It's not something I've ever done. I'm a professional musician. That's my day job. I'm nothing to do with tech. But here we are, talking about it. And I think that's a really key thing. Fantastic. So where do you go from here? How long does the fellowship last?
I think it's indefinite, isn't it? I mean, Mahima, she's just in her final year of university. She's been with the fellowship for 6 years, and that's what's great about it, is that they're so open to supporting you, and they're so excited to see where our journeys are and to support you in any way that they can. And so definitely it's indefinite.
So you haven't said to Heather, maybe 10 years and I'll be knocking on your door for you to hand over the baton and it'll be my turn?
Well, I'm definitely considering it.
Well, brilliant. Well, thanks for talking to me. It's really great to speak to you.
Thank you so
and
much.
I love the energy that comes from all of you, and I think it's a fantastic thing. So congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Education on Fire podcast. For more information, please go to educationonfire.com.